A look back to key moments during the Dakota Access Pipeline protests in 2016 and where North Dakotans stand today. This is Dapl, 10 years later.
Good evening. It's been 10 years since the protests erupted over the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Many viewed the pipeline as a crucial piece of infrastructure. Others raised significant concerns about its impact on water and the surrounding environment. Tensions reached a breaking point as protests swept across western North Dakota, prompting a response from law enforcement and the North Dakota National Guard. Join us as we look back and examine the events of 2016 and 17. Much of the video you're going to see during this special was taken 10 years ago. We begin with some background on what the pipeline is and where it's located. Texas-based Energy Transfer Partners started construction on the Dakota Access Pipeline in 2016 at an estimated cost of $3.8 billion. The nearly 1,200-mile-long pipeline originates in Stanley, North Dakota, transporting crude oil from the Bakken region to Patoka, Illinois. According to its owner, the line is buried 3 to 4 feet underground and deeper under roads and bodies of water. It crosses beneath the Missouri and Mississippi rivers as well as Lake Oahe. It runs approximately half a mile from the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. From the moment of its announcement, the pipeline sparked a fight stretching from job promises to environmental concerns. Sophia Morales walks us through some key moments of that time, from the first trench to what's happening today.
In 2014, the Dakota Access Pipeline was pitched as an efficient way to move 500,000 barrels of oil a day from North Dakota to Illinois. By 2016, state regulators gave it the green light. However, for those living along the route, the pipeline became a symbol of a much bigger fight over land, water, and climate. Several protests erupted about 3 months after the ND Public Service Commission approved the project's application near the Cannonball and Missouri rivers. By the end of 2016, the tension turned into violence. Law enforcement used tear gas and water cannons in freezing temperatures, with private security using guard dogs on protesters. News reports reveal that more than 300 people were injured. The Obama administration eventually passed a short-lived pause on the project. In 2017, President Trump signed an order to push construction forward. And by June, the 1,172-mile-long line became fully operational. But that didn't stop the battle shifting from the mud to the courtroom. For years, judges and the Army Corps sparred over the environmental studies for the pipeline, even going as far as to ordering the oil to stop flowing altogether. Until 2025, when the government released its final word, which recommended keeping the pipeline open under certain conditions. Now, as of 2026, the pipeline has a current nameplate capacity to transport up to 750,000 barrels of oil per day, a vast increase from its initial 470,000 to 570,000 barrel capacity. In Bismarck, I'm Sophia Morales, reporting for your news leader.
Well, the Army Corps of Engineers says it's continuing to ensure the safety conditions for the pipeline are met. For now, the oil continues to flow, fueling both the nation's energy needs and North Dakota's economy. But despite reassurances from the Corps, questions about water safety and the pipeline's environmental impact have not gone away. Kiona Rivera tells us about past leaks and how that line is monitored.
When protesters made their feelings known about the pipeline, one of their main concerns was safety. What would happen if there was an oil spill?
It could affect the fish, wildlife, everything that the Missouri River offers.
State records show 2 small oil spills from the line since it started operating in 2017. In 2018, 1.5 barrels leaked from a valve near Trenton. 4 years later, 3 barrels spilled inside a building in Watford City due to equipment failure. State officials classify 2 smaller releases in 2017 and 2023 as unrelated to the pipeline itself. All 4 spills have been cleaned.
The other thing to note is not just the number, but also the severity of those spills, and they've all been fairly low severity.
For the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, those numbers aren't just statistics. The tribe has long warned the pipeline threatens their water supply and sacred land. Director of Water Resources, Doug Krogost, recalls rallying with protesters.
I took about 1,000 people to D.C. that marched on the Capitol and to the Army Corps of Engineers.
We reached out to Energy Transfer Partners, the company that built this underground line. They said in part, the Dakota Access Pipeline is one of the most technologically advanced and safest pipelines, surpassing many safety requirements. It is monitored 7 days a week, 365 days per year. To this day, the tribe remains concerned about the things they rallied about in the beginning.
Lack of transparency from emergency response plan, lack of transparency of what is actually in the pipeline.
While the tribe's drinking water intake is about 75 miles away from this pipeline, Krogost tells me that only offers partial reassurance.
We do have intakes for irrigation at the Cannonball River site, located about 3/4 of a mile south of the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Rockman acknowledges the company's safety records, but stops short of calling the risk zero.
But we do recognize that all equipment can have potential malfunction. People can make mistakes. So there's always a risk, and we don't want to get complacent with any pipeline system.
As the pipeline enters its second decade, state regulators and the company say it's safe, while concerns about its long-term impacts persist. I'm Kiona Rivera reporting for your news leader.
The Standing Rock Sioux tribe says they test water samples several times a year. However, it's costly to do more extensive testing, such as checking specifically for oil and gas in the Missouri River. They're continuing their work and bringing more awareness to Dapl and advocating for transparency across the board. And while the majority of the protests took place near the Standing Rock Sioux tribe's reservation, its impact was felt all across the area. Ariana Gonzalez spoke with a resident in the nearby town of Huff about her experiences with law enforcement.
When the protests started, residents became part of the movement, whether they wanted to or not. Law enforcement and the National Guard heavily monitored who drove along these roads, as protesters voiced their opinions about the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Karen Schmidt recalls having to prove she lived in the small town of Huff to get through the blockades. Huff, population 15, was near the location where the protests took place.
We had to show our license, and that was down over by Fort Lincoln Cemetery, where we had to show our driver's license to go in and out.
Many people asked why they were being stopped, but few received answers.
My thought is they were trying to control who was coming in and out of there.
However, once you proved you belonged to the area, the process became easier.
If you were local, they let you go through.
Schmidt recalls seeing lines of 5 or 6 cars, and sometimes it delayed her in getting her daughter to sports practices.
It was tough because at that time, Morgan had cross-country practice. And so, yeah, sometimes there was like a line, and sometimes we were almost late getting there.
Overall, she feels like law enforcement treated her family fairly, but she wishes they had focused more on the community.
I think they could have made more patrols around to the people, because other people got cattle stolen and stuff, and I think they should have been more worried about the neighbors around.
In Huff, Schmidt says the protests brought more than attention. They brought checkpoints to everyday life. In Huff, I'm Ariana Gonzalez, reporting for your news leader.
Many of the people who were involved in the protests described that period as painful, with each side firmly holding to their beliefs and commitments. Despite the struggles, moments of growth emerged. Tia Jorgensen spoke with several law enforcement agencies about the lessons they've learned.
The silence of each new day along Highway 1806 in Morton County is a stark contrast to 10 years ago. Along the rolling prairies, protesters took a stand.
Please go back to the camp.
Law enforcement didn't stand down. At one point, the Morton County Sheriff's Department reported that at least 1,300 people from multiple agencies and states assisted their department during the protests.
And the other major challenge was the duration of this protest.
Among them was Major Trent Wangen from the Burleigh County Sheriff's Office. He worked on the protest for 7 months.
I think all of law enforcement learned a lot. I know I did. There had never been a large-scale protest activity or civil disobedience activity in a rural area.
From drones to working as a team with multiple agencies, that moment in time has stayed with Wangen and his department.
The lessons that were learned was maximizing the usage of our public information officers and having our strong partnership to get the correct, accurate information out to the media and the public in a timely manner.
Other law enforcement agencies also took the experience and built upon it. Following the protests, Bismarck Police Department formed the Mobile Field Force Team. Those officers are specially trained and prepared for any civil disturbance. The team currently consists of 26 officers. And in 2017, the North Dakota Highway Patrol created a program to enhance relationships with culturally diverse communities. The agency also worked to establish mutual aid agreements with the MHA Nation and the Spirit Lake Tribe.
Bill 1304 is declared passed.
The protests even inspired a new law. Officers say they respect protest rights, but the response changes when it poses a public safety risk. In 2017, legislators passed an anti-mask measure. It makes it a Class A misdemeanor to wear a face covering during a crime. One of the latest people to be charged with it is Evan Mitchell. Prosecutors say he wore a realistic face mask as he robbed a Mandan bar on March 5th, as seen in this surveillance photo from police. That is a huge flag.
That picture is from the day when law enforcement cleared out the main protest.
Major Trent Wangen doesn't know who took the photo or donated it to the department, but he keeps it in his office as a reminder of 10 years ago.
That is one of the items, or the item I most cherish for my memories from the Dapl protest.
He can still picture 2016. It will stay with him, as will the knowledge gained. He says they are better prepared to manage protests of all kinds and serve the people of North Dakota in the future. In Bismarck, I'm Tia Jorgensen, reporting for your News Leader.
Wangen added that the work relationships he built during those 7 months with other law enforcement agencies still benefits him and his colleagues at the Sheriff's Office to this day. The events of 10 years ago made headlines around the world, and covering that story was a daily assignment for our news team. For journalists, that meant putting themselves in the middle of chaos. 2 of KFYR's most experienced photographers recall this story as one of the longest, most frustrating stories of their careers, but say they'd do it all again if asked. Here's Jody Kurzman.
Dwayne Walker spent more than 4 decades as a television news photographer for KFYR-TV. Dwayne was the first journalist on scene to the shootout between tax protester Gordon Call and federal agents. He covered blizzards, tornadoes, presidential visits.
Happy birthday, North Dakota.
Dwayne traveled the state and the world gathering news.
The photographer Dwayne Walker.
But perhaps the most impactful story of his career happened just south of Mandan.
This was happening down in my backyard. I grew up in Sioux County.
This was the Dakota Access Pipeline protests.
First event that we covered was just a protest, and then it just kept on going from there. The camp was a small camp, and pretty soon it just kept getting larger, and it got more difficult to get to the location to shoot the story. It got more difficult to get in and get the story. Things are just not developing like a normal news story. And then it just kind of exploded.
Protests became violent. Tear gas was deployed. Construction equipment vandalized. Dwayne and fellow KFYR-TV photographer Cliff Naylor had front row seats to it all.
These are not the enemy.
You never knew what was going to happen from day to day.
We never knew what we were going to find.
Every day, they did their best to capture the news of the day and to tell an unbiased story.
You can't just stay on the police side and only shoot one side of the event. You can't just stay on the protester side because I KFYR was trying to tell the whole story.
But to tell that story, they knew they had to put themselves in the middle of the chaos. They were harassed and threatened.
Who said you can come in here?
Turned into a photographer's nightmare.
You guys need to go to your car and get the out of here then.
They didn't want us there because they were calling us fake news. And they had a lot of people running around with cell phones in their hands and in our faces, doing their own newscasts, saying how we were telling the wrong story.
They surrounded me, and one person in the crowd tried to, I felt my camera move. I put my camera down because they were having their hands in front of my lens and not allowing me to shoot any more video. I put my camera down on the side, and I felt something move on my camera, and there was a finger that was trying to punch the video card out of my camera.
That incident changed how news crews operated.
Everybody here is subject to arrest.
Following that protest, KFYR photographers and reporters worked in teams.
I was always with a buddy.
Safety became more important than any story. Dwayne recalls pulling the plug on a live shot just minutes before the newscast.
I just didn't feel it was a safe situation.
Station vehicles became targets too.
We started going down with unmarked vehicles, just so that they didn't know we were there.
If something happens civilly and criminally.
After I'd been threatened and harassed for 3 months.
The protests made such an impression on Cliff, he dedicated an entire chapter to them in his latest book, Straight from the Shoulder.
The Dakota Access Pipeline protests were the most dangerous and challenging assignments of my entire career.
I'm drawn into the moment as a photographer. I'm seeing all this good video in front of me.
Defend the camp!
I'm focused like a laser beam on telling the story and not thinking about, is this safe? That comes later, but I always focused in on getting good video and telling both sides of the story.
Both seasoned journalists look back at their work with pride, knowing they shared fair and accurate accounts of what happened. In Bismarck, I'm Jody Kurzman, reporting for your news leader. While Cliff and Dwayne were in the field every day gathering video and interviews for our newscasts, Alan Miller was here in the studio delivering the news each evening. Alan joins me now to talk a little more about what that was like. Alan, it's been 10 years. How has covering when we think of stories that impact you as a person, as a journalist, what's the impact of the Dakota Access Pipeline protests?
This was something that, this is something that's stored in your memory banks forever because of the intensity involved. And I remember the reporters would come back each and every day, and they were so pumped up and telling us what was happening and the concerns about their own safety and that sort of thing. And if one reporter got separated from Cliff or Dwayne, that they were concerned, where is he? What am I going to do? How am I going to be safe? And I was glad that I was here to kind of keep things calm and write things from a calm perspective.
Calm them down, because there were a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
What was kind of going through your mind when you knew those crews were going out there every day to gather the news? What were you thinking?
Well, I was thinking, I hope they're okay, because on a normal day, reporters go out and do stories, you don't even think about it. But with something like that, where they're going day after day after day, and things are going on, weeks at a time, there was just so much tension each and every day. It was hard to relax, because they're your friends. You're concerned about what's going on out there.
Right, and so when they're going down south of Mandan, you're still a little removed from it. But at one point, things moved into Bismarck, right outside our station. Tell me about what you remember about that.
Oh, it's like I've never seen sidewalks more crowded in my whole 25 years here than at that time. It was like, even if you stepped right outside the station door, you were walking right into a crowd. And we're concerned about our safety. I mean, obviously the people there were generally peaceful and there wasn't a real concern, but you think about the cars out there and the traffic and what person might run into you and yell at you and that sort of thing.
Did you ever feel like you weren't safe?
There were times when it was time to leave, that, can I step out and not have anybody confront me, that sort of thing. That was a real concern. I mean, fair or unfair, everybody kind of had that kind of feeling.
Do you think there were some lessons that you learned as a journalist from these protests?
Well, certainly, you can't just get one side of a story. Mm-hmm. I mean, people have their opinions, and those opinions are important, but they don't tell the whole story. And so you've got to talk to the other people, and these people are opposed to one another, and you get each of their perspectives to kind of tell the story and let people make their own decisions. And that was something, you can't leave it to chance. You've got to be able to talk to both sides.
And that's an important lesson for covering everything.
Absolutely.
We don't need to share opinions.
Okay.
Good stuff. All right, thanks, Alan. Back to you, Atticus.
Thank you, Jody and Alan. Over the past decade, the State Historical Society has collected artifacts from the protests to preserve this chapter in North Dakota's history. They pulled some of the items out of their storage to show our photographer, Carly Gifford.
This was a pretty polarizing event in North Dakota history. It made national news, and the State Historical Society recognized the importance of this event. It's important that we collected from all sides of the story because North Dakotans experience this event very differently. And we want to, as a State Historical Society, we want to make sure we're fair and thorough in what we collect and whose perspective we are collecting. It's always interesting to look back on how people utilize their First Amendment rights to protest. Things that are happening today become history really quickly.
Several of the different groups involved donated items, including protesters, various law enforcement agencies, and the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. Those involved faced another challenge as well, braving the elements in the rural and open countryside of Morton County. Meteorologist Megan Chatta explains what weather conditions they faced.
In the 11 months that Dapl spanned, we had a wide range of weather. The camp started forming in April of 2016. The month saw heavy rainfall with 2 daily rainfall records broken. While the summer was warm, there were very few, if any, temperature records broken. But there were 285 combined severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings issued by the Bismarck National Weather Service office between April and September. 119 of those warnings were in July. The Weather Service issued 45 of the 285 warnings for Morton County. The activity in the camps ramped up in August and continued into the winter months. The end of fall and beginning of winter were brutal. November started the active weather. The 9th set a new high temperature record of 75 degrees. Then a winter storm moved through on the 27th through the 30th. It dumped 18.5 inches of snow on protesters, and 40-mile-an-hour winds whipped up a couple of those days. December 5th and 6th received just over 7 inches of snow with strong winds. The 17th set a new low temperature record at 31 degrees below zero. All of December was marked by low wind chills, especially towards the middle of the month. Christmas Day and the day after saw another 12.5 inches of snow, along with winds over 40 miles per hour. 2017 started with a bang of winter weather. January 1st and 2nd saw over 9.5 inches of snow. 3 days into the month, there was a blanket of it on the ground, 21 inches deep at the Bismarck Airport. The 3rd through 17th all had low temperatures below zero, while the 7th stayed fully below zero with a high and low. In those 2 weeks, wind chills bottomed out at 42 below zero. Those were the 4 bigger winter storms that hit the area before law enforcement closed the camps. I'm meteorologist Megan Chatta reporting for your news leader.
Even before oil flowed through the pipeline, its fate has been shaped by a series of court rulings. Michael Anthony brings us a recap on the legal side of this 10-year journey.
Whether it be through the halls of the Morton County Courthouse or the interior of the Circuit Court in D.C., attorneys for and against the Dakota Access Pipeline have been busy with a number of cases. Since the planning stages of the pipeline, officials with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe have looked to stop the pipeline through lawsuits starting in July of 2016. A federal court judge denied the attempt a few months later, but the Obama administration put a hold on construction despite permits having been approved earlier. When President Donald Trump came into office in 2017, he ordered construction to begin again, with Standing Rock losing court appeals. It wasn't until 2020 when the tribe secured a major victory in court. A federal judge dismissed the permit, allowing the line to run under Lake Oahe until an environmental impact statement was completed. The judge did, however, allow operations to continue despite that easement. The impact statement was released in December 2025, but the Army Corps of Engineers hasn't made a final decision yet. Should that easement be approved, officials with Standing Rock say they would appeal it. The protest during the pipeline's construction also led to a number of legal fights, some focusing on individuals and others based on the aftermath.
This whole thing might not have mushroomed into the kind of massive situation that we had.
In 2019, North Dakota filed a lawsuit against the federal government seeking $38 million for damages over cleanup costs. In 2025, the state was awarded $27 million, but officials are planning a settlement to avoid federal appeals. Energy Transfer is also seeking financial damages against protesters. Last year, the company went to trial against Greenpeace over its involvement. A jury found the organization liable, and the judge ordered it to pay nearly $700 million. It was later reduced to around $345 million, which they are appealing.
Peaceful protest is an inherent American right. However, violent and destructive protest is unlawful and unacceptable.
Oil continues to flow through Dapl, as do legal proceedings tied to its infrastructure and environmental impact. I'm Michael Anthony, reporting for your news leader.
Last month, a civil case between members of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe and a private security firm over closing a section of Highway 1806 during the protests was dismissed. Thank you for joining us for this special coverage event, remembering Dapl 10 years later.